also hear directly, we'll also get some highlights from the president's record-long speech and get the reaction on this morning after. Let's begin by listening to at least some of the key moments from last night.
So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. First duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. After 4 years in which millions and millions of illegal aliens poured across our borders, totally unvetted and unchecked, we now have the strongest and most secure border in American history by far. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens, in many cases drug lords, murderers all over our country. Mortgage rates are the lowest in 4 years and falling fast, and the annual cost of a typical new mortgage is down almost $5,000 just since I took office. 1 year. And low interest rates will solve the Biden-created housing problem well. That really feel rich for the first time in their lives. We want to protect those values. We want to keep those values up. We're going to do both. The Somali pirates who ransacked Minnesota remind us that there are large parts of the world where bribery, corruption, and lawlessness are the norm, not the exception. Importing these cultures through unrestricted immigration and open borders brings those problems right here to the USA. And it is the American people who pay the price in higher medical bills, car insurance rates, rent, taxes, and perhaps most importantly, crime. We will take care of this problem. One of the primary reasons for our country's stunning economic turnaround, the biggest in history, where the Dow Jones broke 50,000 4 years ahead of schedule, and the S&P hit 7,000, where it wasn't supposed to do it for many years, were tariffs. I used these tariffs, took in hundreds of billions of dollars to make great deals for our country, both economically and on a national security basis. And then just 4 days ago, an unfortunate ruling from the United States Supreme Court, it just came down. It came down. Very unfortunate ruling. As time goes by, I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the people that I love. For years, large swaths of territory in our region, including large parts of Mexico, really large parts of Mexico, have been controlled by murderous drug cartels. That's why I designated these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, and I declared illicit fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. With our new military campaign, we have stopped record amounts of drugs coming into our country and virtually stopped it completely coming in by water or sea. You probably noticed that. We very seriously damaged their fishing industry also. Nobody wants to go fishing anymore. America's armed forces overwhelmed all defenses are not only defeated an enemy, good fighters. To end the reign of outlawed dictator Nicolas Maduro and bring him to face American justice. We are in negotiations with them. They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Under the ceasefire I negotiated, every single hostage, both living and dead, has been returned home. Can you believe it? My first 10 months, I ended 8 wars, including Cambodia. Isn't it funny? sick people. And we're working very hard to end the ninth war, the killing and slaughter between Russia and Ukraine, where 25,000 soldiers are dying each and every month. And the reason they don't want to do it, why would anybody not want voter ID? One reason, because they want to cheat. There's only one reason. They make up all excuses. They say it's racist. They come up with things you almost say, what imagination they have. They want to cheat. They have cheated. And their policy is so bad that the only way they can get elected is to cheat. And we're going to stop it. Starting last summer, I deferred to our most dangerous cities, including Memphis, Tennessee, big success. New Orleans, Louisiana, big success. And our nation's capital itself, Washington, D.C., where we have almost no crime anymore in Washington, D.C. How did that happen? I took prescription drugs, a very big part of healthcare, from the highest price in the entire world to the lowest. That's a big achievement. Many Americans are also concerned that energy demand from AI data centers could unfairly drive up their electric utility bills. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that I have negotiated the new Ratepayer Protection Pledge. You know what that is? We're telling the major tech companies that they have the obligation to provide for their own power needs. Surely we can all agree no state can be allowed to rip children from their parents' arms and transition them to a new gender against the parents' will. Who would believe that we're even talking about it? We must ban it, and we must ban it immediately. Look, nobody says that. These people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy.
All right, so those were some of the highlights from the president's State of the Union address last night. A couple notes. We have Daniel Dell coming on later for a fact check, and we have Congresswoman Ilhan Omar later in the show to discuss the address and some of the words exchanged with the president last
All
night.
the Democrats crazy at the very end.
Right, and she had some choice words as well. So we're going to talk to her later in the show. I want to begin with our deep dive. CNN political director and Washington bureau chief David Chalian is here with us in the Situation Room. David, what do we know right now about how viewers rated the president on last night's State of the Union address?
Well, we conducted an instant poll of speech watchers, which, by the way, is a universe of people that does not look like the overall population, because people who are fans of a president tend to turn out in greater numbers to watch that president give an address. So it's about a 13-point more Republican universe than the overall universe. But look at these results. 38% of speech watchers had a very positive reaction to Donald Trump's speech last night. 25% somewhat positive, 36% negative. So what you see, Pam, is 2/3 of speech watchers have a somewhat or very positive reaction. But that very positive number, when you compare it to Donald Trump's other addresses, it's actually a low point. I mean, just last year in his speech, that instant poll result was at 44% very positive. And that was even, and we had a more Republican sample last night than last year. I think that tells the story of what Donald Trump is up against, irrespective of the speech, which is that where he was a year ago is, those members he was talking to who are on the ballot this year, they are in a very, very tough political environment. I'm not sure it was a realistic expectation for anyone to think that Donald Trump would somehow, with one speech, be able to change the political environment. Even as you went through that whole highlight, he gave Republicans something to sort of walk out and talk about and tout some accomplishments. He didn't, I think, get in their way, but he didn't change the political environment, which is a really, really tough one for them.
So what I hear you saying is that a lot of Democrats and many independents simply didn't want to listen to Trump last night. They didn't want to spend 2 hours listening to his speech.
Yeah, I think in our speech watcher sample, it was about 41% Republican, 41% independent, and only like 18% Democratic. So yes, I don't think Democrats in large part tuned in. And I would also note, though, even among independent speech watchers, we saw a big drop in very positive response from his speech compared to last year.
Republicans certainly will face a very tough fight to keep control of the House and the Senate in the November midterm elections that are coming up. Was this speech by Trump forward-looking enough to help articulate and sell the Republican vision in November?
It's a good question. When you speak for an hour and 48 minutes, you get to give 3 different speeches, which is basically what he did, right? I mean, he gave a speech on the economy and touted his accomplishments, even if he, I don't think he's really capable of that "I feel your pain" thing, which some Republicans would have liked to have heard. But then he had the partisan brawler piece of the speech, which could enliven his base a little bit. And he had those great theatrical moments that he executed on the unifying moments of the hockey team and the like. But Wolf, you asked a key question. One of the results from our poll is Trump's policies. Will they move the U.S. in the right direction? He did make some progress with speech watchers. Prior to the speech, 54% said his policies would move in the right direction. At the conclusion of the speech, speech watchers said 64% of them said his policies would move in the right direction. So with the folks who were watching the speech, he did make some progress, to your point, about some path forward, or they believed that the way he articulated his policies would be positive. Your question was, is it enough? Again, I don't think with one speech you can undo the real political challenge that this president and his party faces.
David Chalian, thanks so much.
He's always good, David Chalian. I want to get some more now on the president's State of the Union address and the Democratic response. I want to bring in CNN's chief political analyst, David Axelrod, who previously served as a senior advisor to President Obama. David, thanks so much for coming in. Based on everything you heard last night, what stood out to you the most from that speech?
Well, I agree with you. David Chalian's always good, and he was good here. I think that Republicans were relieved because he didn't get in his own way. He stuck to the script. If you were a strategist, you were relieved because he largely stuck to the script. But the problem is that far and away the biggest concern people have is the economy. And he told a story of the economy that did not match people's experience. And you cannot jawbone people into feeling what they're not experiencing. So that's a problem for him. The most interesting thing, maybe from a strategic standpoint, was I think you do see the blueprint of how they hope to attack these midterm elections. Hard for any incumbent to gain seats in a midterm election, but they want to talk about tax cuts as their answer to the economy. They want to talk about fraud in the states, federal money, as they found in Minnesota, as a way of saying, this is where your money's going. Forget about the tax cuts for the rich. This is where your money is going. They want to talk about immigrants, and they want to regain the edge on the immigration issue, which was squandered because of ICE's overreaction. And then finally, they want to define the Democrats and create a kind of straw man to run against. So that line, these people are crazy, it seemed like an ad lib. It was written into his text. That is the picture they want to paint. That your guest, Ilhan Omar, they want her to be the face of the Democratic Party. They want Mamdani to be the face of the Democratic Party that they can sort of organize against. Whether this will work, I think, is a very big question. But at least you saw what they're thinking about strategically moving forward to November.
Representative Ilhan Omar is going to be joining us here in the situation that's coming up. What about what was not in Trump's speech last night? Like any mention, for example, of the Epstein files or the killings of U.S. citizens by federal agents in Minneapolis, as we all remember. What about
concerned about? One of the concerns I think that going into the speech was the chamber was filled with victims of Epstein who were invited by Democrats and filled the galleries. And I think one of the things that would have been a real problem for them is if Trump had become reactive to that and engaged on that issue. He didn't. But this is a huge and continuing problem for them that just seems to be growing. It's consuming the globe incredibly. So I think this is going to continue to be a problem. And obviously, they know that what ICE has done in Minneapolis, in Chicago, and around the country has become a vulnerability for them. The immigration issue, which was an unambiguous plus for him in the last election, is now something of a liability because of all of the things that ICE has done. And they're trying to mute that and recast the immigration issue in terms they think are more favorable to them. So they've got a huge task ahead of them. But at least last night, although he probably kept the fact checkers up all night going through a list of things that simply weren't true, I think the president probably fulfilled the mission that his his strategist hoped he would fulfill.
Yeah, Daniel Dale, our fact checker, is going to be joining us soon
Yes,
to
he'll
go
be
through.
weary-eyed, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
he's been working really hard. I want to turn to the Democratic response from Virginia's new governor, Abigail Spanberger. Here's some of what she said last night. Listen to this.
He's enriching himself, his family, his friends. The scale of the corruption is unprecedented. There's the cover up of the Epstein files, the crypto scams, cozying up to foreign princes for airplanes and billionaires for ballrooms, putting his name and face on buildings all over our nation's capital. This is not what our founders envisioned, not by a long shot.
So, David, was that an effective message in your view?
Well, the corruption message, I think, is cost, corruption, and chaos are what Democrats are going to run on. Cost being the first one. She emphasized that in her speech. I think she did a good job. It's an impossible task. I mean, it's a terrible assignment. You know, when you get that call, it's like, is it good news or bad news that I have to give this response? I think she did the best she could do with it.
She's impressive, an impressive lady indeed. All right, David Axelrod, thank you very, very much.
See you guys.
All right, still ahead here in the Situation